if I'm the business owner, right, and I need to select internal auditor, what should I pay attention to?
You should pay attention to, first of all, their qualification, their background. They have to be certified internal auditors, member of IIA. And then comes certifications like CISA, which is certified information system auditors. There is certified fraud examiners. So first you should give attention to their certification, and then comes the experience as well. What sort of industry they have worked for, what sort of value they have added to that company, to that industry or to the companies they work for. And whether they have managed teams before or not. So if you are looking them as a head of your department, so these things do help you identify a good internal audit head.
So what's the most popular one or the best internal audit certification?
It has to be a certified internal auditor, CIA, which is sort of which comes under IIA, Internal Audit, Institute of Internal Auditors.
Okay. And then you have specific ones for different areas like IT and things like that?
Yeah, so CISA comes under IT, but then if you have to go very specific in IT, then there is CISP, and then other certifications comes in as well. But having CISA makes you a good IT auditor.
All right. Okay, so let's play this scenario. I'm the business owner here, right? And I want to understand what makes a good internal auditor, what they can help me with. Like, if you are to explain to me how can you benefit my company, right? Let's say I'm a business owner or a CEO of a company, I don't know, 50 million, 100 people, right? So medium-sized company. How can you help me?
I would also talk about the worst type of internal auditors as well, right? So the worst could be the ones who would come in and they would sort of start identifying people they don't like, and start having conflicts. The correct kind of a person is who knows how to work with people, who knows how to work with different stakeholders, who knows what the company's vision is, who knows what company wants from this department, and then from there onwards, understand the business processes, identify high risk areas, key areas that that business rely on, and then from there on, build their own risk control matrix, and then identify what current controls are in place, and then test them, give recommendations, and then follow on those recommendations as well.
Can you find inefficiencies? For example, we have a lot of, I don't know, process in, I'm not talking only about the finance. I know finance is a specific one, but let's say, I don't know, sales or even operations, right? Can you identify that this is inefficient process and we're using too much resources, too many people are involved, this can be simplified? Can the internal auditor actually do that, like assess this is inefficient process, this is the redesigned process, it's going to save you X amount of money or some resources?
100%. So there are two ways to do this, as I understand. Is one is you have a policy in place that you have to follow. So that's a direction that comes from top to bottom, right? That this is what we expect. So you can test the policy and match the on-run process against it, or you can do some data analytics and identify anomalies, and see whether you're, for example, it's a sale process. You have some opportunities, whether the sales guys, they are reaching out to client on time or not. If they're not, then all the money that is spent on opportunities is sort of going in waste, and those opportunities are going to your competitors who are ahead of your sales team. So yes, this is where internal audit can help.
And let's say there are no policies in place at all.
Yeah.
It is a company which grew fast in the last 2 years. It was a startup, but now it's transitioning into proper kind of SME, right? So can you help develop procedures?
100%, but this is where there is a slight gray area. So an auditor designing control and auditor reviewing control has to be two different people, or two different set of teams. Someone who is designing control wouldn't really be objective when they are sort of reviewing those controls as well. So yes, 100% they can help in design those controls, and then another team can sort of review and test those controls as well.
Okay. So which areas can you help with? Finance is one, right? What
Yeah.
about what's some other departments?
So I think what you want to understand is what are the key risks that companies in the UAE, let's say, face, and how we can sort of help them. So it has to be cybersecurity and data breach. That's one key risk. Regulatory compliance issues. Then obviously, as you mentioned, finance comes in place as well. Risk of fraud. And then also operational inefficiencies. Whether what is supposed to be done on ground is, and whether those timelines, KPIs being met or not. So that's where internal audit can sort of identify those gray areas and highlight to those charged with governance.
What about your experience, always? Say something about your experience. Like how many years, how many companies have you audited?
So overall, I have 15 years of experience in accounting and finance and tax, as well as internal audit. I hold CIA, CISA. I'm an ACC as well. I worked over the years. I've worked in a couple of consultancy firms. I've also worked in real estate sector, and I have worked, vastly in the CSP industry. With the leaders. That's where I developed my own internal department from scratch. And yeah, I mean, if you ask me, and that's been a highlight of my career so far as well.
And how big was that department? How many people were there?
So it was different at times. The numbers changed in different times. However, we were 5 to 10, in different times.
Okay. And how does internal auditor work? Like, what do you do? How does, let's say you've signed an engagement letter with some company, right? Like, what are the steps in your work? How do you approach that? What's the result? Like, how much time does someone have to wait to see the results?
So, like I mentioned, you first have to identify what company is trying to, why company wants this audit to be done, or this engagement to be done. So, you identify the objectives of the audit. Then you sort of you start your groundwork where you sort of go and start meeting the process owners. That could be your head of departments as well. Try to understand what are the key processes within each department, and that builds a whole risk control matrix. Now, what that is basically an organization-wide matrix that tells you, what are your key processes, what are the risks that are involved, that can sort of deter you from reaching your objectives from those processes. And then you sort of rate them inherently how risky that process is in itself, and or those risks are. For example, if you have cash lying on in the finance department, so that is risky always. That can be either stolen or misplaced or whatsoever. Or if you have high cash, if you have let's say high banking transaction, then there has to be approvals in place. So it's an inherently risky area. Then you identify the controls that are currently in place by those HODs, and then you test those controls. You come back with your findings as well as recommendations how this can be improved, and then comes the follow-up.
So let's consider that you are engaged to look into the finance department. Finance department is medium sized, let's say 10 to 15 people, right? In finance department alone. How much time do you need to actually do the whole risk assessment analysis and then draft the report, finish report, and present it to stakeholders, owners, or C-level?
Usually it takes around 4 to 6 weeks if you have to only audit one department, but again it depends on the stakeholders, how deep they want to go into the department. Because not all the processes that are identified are going to be high risk. Some of them are going to be high risk, some of them are going to be medium or low risk. So if they want assessments to be done on all the processes, then it takes usually, on the higher side, 6 weeks to 8 weeks to sort of present the report. Otherwise, if you're only working on the high risk areas, then it takes around 4 weeks to have the findings confirmed and a draft report to be presented to the stakeholders.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think internal audit benefits bigger companies more than, let's say, smaller companies. But I also think that there's some benefit in smaller companies being interested in internal audit, right?
Yeah. So what would a bigger company be interested in is a risk-based audit. So the audit engagement that I just discussed, going from identifying processes to all the way to giving your findings and then follow up. So this is where the bigger companies would be interested in, since they have so many processes identified and sort of they would have more likely they would have SOPs in place as well. Whereas a startup or a smaller company would not really have their processes defined as such, right? So what they would be interested in is a department level or a specific area level audit that they would want to identify.
Or maybe they will ask you to just, can you develop SOPs for finance
100%,
department?
yeah, 100%, yeah. So they could they would want us to sort of define their processes. So that's where we can help as well.
All right. What, apart from technical skills, I believe, and you mentioned about it earlier, soft skills are important, right? Because you're dealing with a lot of stakeholders, not only the upper management or the owners, but
100%.
also head of departments.
You have to be people's person.
And because you're right. I mean, at the beginning, you mentioned that internal audit is perceived as a police, right? So there might be some pushback in terms of, I don't know. You go basically to head of departments, ask them, what do you do, how you do it, why do you do it this way, right? So some people might take it, maybe not personally, but they might think like, why are you asking me these questions? Like, leave me alone. And so does that often happen?
It happens all the time. Sometimes you would know someone who would already have been audited. Those people sometimes are more aware of what's going to happen. It's not really someone trying to sort of take away their job or something. It's more like helping hand to identify your pain points, or the pain points you currently have identified, sort of helping you in fixing those, because it's a third eye looking into your system and sort of independently reviewing those processes and systems. So yeah, it happens, but this is where maturity of internal audit comes in. You have to sort of be more acknowledging. You have to be sort of open with the client and guide them, and yeah, it just have to. It comes down to maturity of the internal auditor.
Do you often have to go to the owner saying that, listen, that HOD doesn't want to cooperate or something?
It can happen, but really, if you sort of, if you, again, if you speak to them in a way that they understand, it's not really required.
I think it's about explaining why we're doing this, why this is important.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this in audit terminology or technical words, this is called scope limitation. This is where you cannot perform a task due to someone not opening up with providing information and not letting you sort of enter their systems.
Audit, I think people know the word audit mostly from like external financial audit, right? What's the difference between external audit, like external financial audit, versus internal audit?
In simple words, internal audit is how can we improve? how an organization can improve. Whereas external audit is more of, whether your financial statements are according to IFRS, according to standards, and they present a fair view. So if I say internal audit is more strengthening inward, and then external audit is more, being trustworthy outward, I think that would be a correct way to put this.
And I think the recipients of the reports are different, right? Because external financial audit, this report might go to, I don't know, banks, lenders, or external servants. Whereas for internal audit, it's mostly internal.
It's mostly internal.
Yeah, owners or C-level.
Yes. So this is where you strengthen yourself internally, and then be more trustworthy outward with the external.
If I'm the business owner, again, let me just be in that shoes for now. So if you have the middle size company, how often do you have to engage with an internal auditor? Is it just like one-time assignment and then come back in 1 year or after 6 months, or is it an ongoing process?
It depends when you say medium-sized company. So whether they have all of their processes, identified, whether they have, different departments in place, or whether it's, so if they have all the departments in place, it's more of an assignment where you sort of go in, spend, 4 to 8 weeks, and present a report. Have the recommendations presented as well, sign the report, and then decide on the follow-up process as well. So that's where you sort of have to go, let's say once a year, and again, when it comes down to a smaller company, so what they would want is just help with maybe one function or something. So you fix that, and then you can perform a follow-up data as well, or as and when they require.
And you touched upon an important topic, because there is follow-up, right? You might go as an internal auditor to the company, identify key risks, rate them, extreme, low, medium, right? You present that report or send it to the board, right? And then nothing happens, right?
Yeah.
And I think that is a risk for an internal auditor, right? I mean, I think this second step of follow-up and making sure that the processes were actually, changed or are followed as per SOPs is also important. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, so this is where I would like to speak to or highlight this point to those charged with governance. If you are sort of looking for an internal audit engagement, you have to be very clear with the tone at the top. You have to make sure what this audit is going to bring back is the recommendation. Either those recommendations are followed as they are, or if you can put something better in place than those recommendations, then those needs to be put in place. But something has to be done with this after this assignment is done. Otherwise it can just be saved in a OneDrive, and no one would probably look into it after, and that's the worst outcome that you can expect from internal audit engagement.
Mm. Now, the reporting. Usually, internal auditor, let's say in bigger companies or medium-sized companies, they report to the board directly, right? They don't report to a CEO, right? So, because of the independence, is that usually the case from your experience?
I mean, I have reported to both. I have reported to to board as well as to CEOs. If you want ultimate independence, you should report to board or an audit committee. Because that's where the ultimate independence comes in. Otherwise, most of the time, if you're reporting to a CEO or a COO or a CFO, then you would find yourself mostly, just looking into the tasks that don't really even matter to those charged with governance. So that would be waste of time and waste of a resource.
On a lighter note, do you know any examples from the corporate world, anywhere, America, Europe, wherever, right, that internal audit played key role in identifying some risk or shielding company from some bigger? I remember I read about, I think that was WorldCom, that the internal auditor was the first one to actually pick up some irregularities within the company. Then it was raised to, I think, the CEO or CFO or C-level person, right? Do you know any examples from real life?
I can't think of a particular example right now, but there are for sure so many. I mean, recently I was listening to a podcast.
Our new addition to Royal CFO. He's in charge of accounting and also internal audit department. At the same time, we want to announce that we're launching a new department in Royal CFO, which is internal audit department. Right? Avais will tell more details about internal audit soon. But welcome on board, and maybe just introduce yourself and tell a little bit about the audit and your experience.
Yeah. Thank you, Milan. I come from an extensive background of accounting and finance, internal audit. I have 15 years of experience from UK as well as from UAE.
All right. Thank you. And I'm often asked how CFO or Royal CFO can help companies, right? So what we do in terms of CFO services, we divide them in 3 different categories, starting from foundation, which is making sure that the processes are compliant with IFRS, with taxes, managing a team, allocating the tasks, implementing proper financial reporting. So basically, what we're doing is correct. What we're reporting is also correct. That's the first step. That's the basis, right? Without correct financial information, you cannot really make any informed decisions about the strategy of the company, about the growth of the company. So that's the first foundation. Then we move on to the second stage, which is optimization. By optimization, we mean, is our cost structure optimized? Maybe we're wasting money somewhere. We're not efficient, right? So this is the second step. It also comes with budgeting. So what are our plans? Where do we see ourselves in, let's say, usually it's about 12 months, right? But strategic plans might be longer, for 1 to 3 years. But usually the best, most accurate is 12 months period. So budgeting and forecasting is the second. Cost optimization, third. KPI. So CFO can also help with designing KPIs for different departments. Of course, finance, but also others as well. Operations, HR, even sales. So KPIs basically help in seeing if everything is working correctly. Right? If you define specific KPIs for different processes, observing how they actually look like can tell you, can raise some flags in certain cases, can tell you if everything is okay. Right? So that's the second stage, which is optimization. The third one, the most advanced one, is growth. By growth, meaning investments. You're buying another company, right? You're raising money, raising equity or debt. In terms of investing in another company, someone has to do the due diligence of that company, right? So this is where the proper CFO comes in. Also strategic plans. This is where the CFO adds a lot of value. And this is the difference between a good CFO and bad CFO, right? Good CFO can add strategic value. And by strategic, meaning like growing a company and increasing its profits, increasing its value. That's the main point, main goal of the CFO, increasing value, right? And you do that by 2 ways. Increasing revenue, so you're looking for new sources of revenue, expansion, new production, new service or revenue or lines, things like that. And also optimizing costs. So that's the third one, which is growth. So in total, you have 3 different levels. Foundation, which is making sure that the processes are compliant with IFRS, accounting, tax. Second is optimization, so budgeting, cost optimization, KPIs. And the third one is growth, which is investments, even exits, right? So investments, buying companies, developing strategic plans. Right? So that's how the CFO can help. That's how we approach Royal CFO.